Chapter 581. The World Group. Ji Tsung Tian's expression changed once again. The group which he had always regarded as trash was actually the World Group. Towards the World Group's name, some middle and lower-ranked mercenary groups in the mercenary world had all heard of it. He naturally had heard of the World Group before. Damn it! Why hadn't he thought of it from the start? It was rumored that the World Group's members were formed by a group of 17 to 18-year-old young men and ladies, and all of them were handsome and beautiful. Whereas the World Group's group leader was an outstanding temperament and an ice, cold-looking blue-eyed man. There was also a vice group leader who was an exquisite-looking young lady with enchanting brows and eyes, possessing a peerless beauty. These people in front of them, didn't they fit these rumors? He actually treated the other party as a trash group. Just based on 60 over youngsters, they accepted a high-grade rare mission and directly rose to a bronze plate mercenary group. It could be seen just how much honor points that high-grade rare mission rewarded. The higher the honor points, the higher the difficulty of that mission, which was totally impossible to complete. But the World Group managed to do it. They broke the Mercenary Association's legend of the number one mercenary group, which had always been worshipped as a god group, replacing it to become the second legend. Ji Tsung Tian's heart started to feel apprehensive. He even felt a little terrified and uneasy, as he didn't want to have any more clashes with this group. Qualifications. Just based on you, do you even have the qualifications to talk about qualifications with Brother Tsung Tian? Lan Ling Nuo stared fiercely at Dmo Xian. She remembered that it was this man who threw her out earlier. It was merely because of inertia that she accidentally fell into his arms. As a man, facing a beauty throwing herself into his arms, shouldn't he take the chance to be a hero to save the beauty? She didn't despise him for his ordinary looks and ugly looks, allowing him to touch her beautiful body, and he actually despised her. Since young, Lan Ling Nuo had never suffered such humiliation before. Brother Tsung Tian, snatch the magical beast back. Teach them a fierce lesson. Lan Ling Nuo clenched her fists tightly as she suppressed the malevolent expression on her face, trying her best to put on a coquettish attitude. She wasn't a mercenary group member and didn't understand what the World Group was, nor did she know what glorious deeds were there under the heavens. Moreover, under Ji Tsung Tian's daily bragging, Lan Ling Nuo unanimously agreed that Blue Dragon Mercenary Group was an especially powerful mercenary group. How could these young and small mercenary groups be compared to Blue Dragon Mercenary Group? Ji Tsung Tian's original intention to retreat started to hesitate again. Lan Ling Nuo obviously bore a grudge against the World Group. If he chose to retreat now, wouldn't his sister Nuo laugh at him for being useless? He knew better than anyone else how he usually boasted about the Blue Dragon Mercenary Group in front of Lan Ling Nuo. Otherwise, Lan Ling Nuo wouldn't have followed them to the magical beast forest. Originally, he wanted to show off his prowess in front of Lan Ling Nuo and then express his love for her. He had loved Lan Ling Nuo for such a long time. How could he destroy everything now? No man was willing to let the woman he loved look down on him. Ji Tsung Tian clenched his fists tightly as he straightened his back and stood in front of his group members, looking at Yi Qing Luo arrogantly. If you know what's good for you, bring your men and leave this place now, otherwise. Don't blame this group leader for not showing any mercy. That arrogant look, forcing himself to put on a fearless look, made Yi Qing Luo laugh. She had been observing Blue Dragon Mercenary Group and observing Ji Tsung Tian. Ji Tsung Tian must have heard of the World Group's name. He was also fearful of the World Group. Chapter 582. Even now, although there was no fear on Ji Tsung Tian's face, but if one took a closer look at his slightly trembling body, one would still be able to tell. Seeing that the leader had spoken, the member became even more spirited. As if he had found a backer, he shouted again, "Did you hear that? Our guild leader is magnanimous and won't bicker with your trashy team. Get lost right now." Yiqing Luo's eyes narrowed slightly as she didn't even bother to take a look at Ji Tian. She directly bent down as her feather fan touched the bear beast's corpse slightly. A fluorescent light flickered, and the huge bear carcass disappeared in the blink of an eye. Blue Dragon Mercenary Group's members all opened their eyes wide, as even using their toes to guess that Yiqing Luo must have done something to this bear beast's corpse. This action was obviously provoking them on purpose. "You, how dare you?" That group member was so infuriated that his face flushed red as he pointed at Yiqing Luo and berated, "You even dare to snatch our Blue Dragon Mercenary Group's mission item, don't blame us for bullying you." They spoke righteously, as if they were the ones who had killed the bear beast. Yiqing Luo gave a cold laugh as she turned around and walked deeper into the eerie cold. How could the members behind him endure such provocation? This woman in front of him actually dared to look down on him. He wanted her to pay a painful price. That member clenched the weapon in his hand tightly as he directly flew towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Yiqing Luo turned around with her back facing the Blue Dragon Mercenary Group. The surrounding the World Group members were all looking at this scene. Not knowing if they were all silly or what, no one actually reminded Yiqing Luo. As for Yiqing Luo, she didn't seem to know that there was someone sneak attacking her from behind. Lan Ling Nuo sat on the back of the wolf beast and watched the scene in front of her. A hint of elation flashed past her eyes. It's this kind of team. When their boss is being ambushed, they can only stand by and watch. This is retribution. She was hinting at the fourth level. Yiqing Luo and the rest were leisurely chatting by the side, while the other youngsters were clearing the way around them. When the members of Blue Dragon Mercenary Group heard this, they felt that it made sense. This was retribution. The members of this useless team put themselves in a high and mighty position, ordering their own team members around as they pleased. He deserved to be abandoned by his own team members. Just as Blue Dragon Mercenary Group's members thought that Yiqing Luo was dead for sure. The ambushing members suddenly let out a blood-curdling scream. With a whoosh, the figure was kicked into the bushes at the side. The sound of a heavy object falling to the ground was accompanied by the painful wails of the regiment member. It was extremely ear-piercing. What was going on? Ji Tian's gaze subconsciously fell onto Yiqing Luo. However, the slender figure still had her back facing them as she returned to the middle of Long Yun Zhan's group before turning around. At the instant when she turned around to look at him, Ji Tian obviously saw a deep sense of ridicule in Yiqing Luo's eyes. Yes, it was mockery. Laughing at his incompetence. Mocking their mercenary group for overestimating themselves. That shameful feeling exploded forth in that instant. Ji Tian was so angry that he was trembling. The current him didn't care if the group in front of him was that famous mercenary group or not. He only knew that he could not let go of anyone who mocked him. Otherwise Blue Dragon Mercenary Group wouldn't have a foothold in the mercenary world. He wanted to kill Yiqing Luo. He wanted to make Yiqing Luo pay a painful price for today's actions. Chapter 583. The other party was just a trashy mercenary group. Why did it feel that? Ji Tian's side had always been on the losing end. Moreover, they were controlled by the other party until they had no way to resist. Earlier, they didn't even see anyone making a move and Lu was sent flying. Lan Ling Nuo started to suspect if what Ji Tian said was true or not. Suddenly, she started to regret listening to Ji Tian's words, abruptly following him into the magic beast forest. Seeing his beloved woman's suspicious gaze, Ji Tian's pride suffered a serious blow. A gush of nameless fury started burning. He clenched his fists tightly as he stared fiercely at Yiqing Luo, shouting out sharply, "Snatch our bear beast back, let them witness the power of the Blue Dragon Mercenary Group." Yiqing Luo and the others looked at Ji Tian as though they were looking at a bunch of clowns. Although the youngsters were already very tired, But the thought of being able to teach these arrogant blue dragon mercenary group a lesson, all of them were as excited as though they were injected with chicken blood. Motherf asterisk cur. They had wanted to beat them up for a long time alright. If it wasn't for Madame Qing Luo's words, they absolutely would have charged up right now. These youngsters, under Yi Qing Luo's influence, all understood one logic. That was battle. The most realistic battle. Which was now, their battle with the Blue Dragon Mercenary Group. The reason why the Blue Dragon Mercenary Group was able to walk till now, to become a Bronze Plate Mercenary Group, was because the group leader and members' characters were a little conceited. But there was no way to deny that they had absolute ability. To be able to battle with them, they should be able to gain quite a bit of upgrade. Yi Qing Luo's brows creased as she was about to say something. Suddenly her ears moved slightly as her vision seemed to have touched something. Her eyes suddenly narrowed as she gave a tender shout, "Retreat immediately." Her expression became solemn. Dmo Xian and Long Yunzhan's expressions instantly sunk as their gazes shot towards the direction of that member called Ah Lu at the same time. When those youngsters who were rubbing their palms heard that, they went into a blank as they speedily followed Yi Qing Luo's instructions, retreating into the depths of the forest. This action, in the eyes of the Blue Dragon Mercenary Group's members, was because they were afraid of their ability and wanted to escape. These group members had always been proud and arrogant, and earlier they were humiliated by Yi Qing Luo and the others, so why would they let them off? Under Ji Tsang Tian's command, the group of them immediately wanted to chase up. Suddenly, a shrill scream came from the bushes behind him. It was Lu's voice. Ji Tsang Tian and the others stopped in their tracks as they turned their heads over. Only to see a huge, pitch-black object poking its head out from the bushes. When he stood up, he was as tall as a mountain. It was a beast, a pitch-black beast. Its legs stood on the ground, and one of its claws hooked Ah Lu up with only one nail. Ah Lu was already a 25-year-old adult man with a tall and sturdy figure. But compared to the giant beast's fingernails, it seemed so tiny. He was as small as an ant. Without any explanation, the giant beast stuffed the person it was hooking onto into its mouth. Instantly, blood splattered everywhere. Ah Lu didn't even let out a scream before he was chewed up and swallowed into the belly of the giant beast. All the members of the group were scared silly. What kind of monster was this? It actually swallowed a living person just like that. Just as they were in a daze, that giant beast started to move once again as it walked out of the forest. Just one step and it covered a long distance. Chapter 584. Under Yi Qing Luo's reminder, the World Group's youngsters retreated to a safe place, avoiding the helpless fate of being trampled to death by the huge beast. Ji Tsang Tian swiftly reacted as he pulled Lan Ling Nuo, who was sitting on the mount, into his arms. Following that, he sped towards the World Group's direction. When the other group members saw that, all of them started to rush over in terror. Oh my god! What the hell was this thing? They had been in the magic beast forest for so many years and had never seen this kind of magical beast in the 5th level. When Blue Dragon Mercenary Group's members rushed over, the World Group's youngsters were simply cursing in their hearts. They couldn't help but wanted to curse this bunch of shameless people. Ah Xian! Yi Qing Luo's brows creased tightly as she tugged Dmo Xian's sleeve as her pair of charming eyes congealed on that huge beast. She wouldn't easily open her mouth to Dmo Xian. But under this situation, she had to open her mouth. This huge beast was too dangerous. She might be able to use blink movement to avoid this huge beast's attack, but the World Group's youngsters were not able to do so. Moreover, unless it was the last resort, she really didn't want to use the blink movement's secret art. Let's not talk about the fact that this secret art was used to save her life. Just the fact that every time she used it, she would be caught red-handed and was even recognized by others. This secret art, if possible, Yi Qing Luo would try not to use it. The huge beast's speed was simply too fast. Its one step was equivalent to everyone releasing all their profound chi and sprinting for 10 meters. But in just a few short moments, another 10 over Blue Dragon Group's members died tragically under the huge beast's feet. There were some who were swept by the huge beast's claws and directly thrown into its mouth. The scene was extremely bloody and ferocious. Based on her strength, there was absolutely no way to protect the World Group's youngsters. Yiqing Luo bit her lower lip tightly as her slender fingers subconsciously clasped Dmo Xian's arm tightly. She was too weak. The bigger the responsibility, the more she felt that she was too weak. After she returned to the academy, she wanted to head to the spiritual Qi treasure land and enter the Azure Dew bracelet to first break through her profound grade-to-earth profound realm. Dmo Xian's palm was warm as it gently covered Yiqing Luo's eyes. His voice was calm without any ripples, but Yiqing Luo could hear his concern. "It's okay, I'm here." Just 4 simple words made Yiqing Luo's heart tremble suddenly. Dmo Xian's palm blocked her vision and it was pitch black. She blinked. Her long, curly eyelashes brushed past his palm like a small brush. Shortly after, the sounds of the youth's heaving sighs of relief could be heard. Yiqing Luo grabbed onto Dmo Xian's palm with both hands, only to see the World Group's youngsters and Blue Dragon Group's members all squeezing over. Although the youths were saying nasty things and ridiculing the group members, they still made way for them to have a place to stand. Not long after, this small piece of flat ground was filled with people. As for the giant beast, it kept raising its foot, trying to step on them. However, the huge foot that was lifted up seemed to be blocked by something and was bounced back. The giant beast's body swayed, and like a collapsing mountain, it fell straight back. Boom boom boom, a deafening sound reverberated along with the entire magic beast forest shaking. It wasn't an exaggeration to describe it as the earth quaking and mountains shaking. It was an enchantment. Yiqing Luo raised her eyes towards the sky and she could faintly see a transparent ray of light, appearing and disappearing indistinctly. When did Dmo Xian conjure the enchantment? Chapter 585. What is that thing? The group members heaved a sigh of relief as their legs were so weak that they couldn't even stand properly. They had all witnessed their own comrades being eaten up by that huge beast, being trampled to death by that huge beast without any chance to resist at all. They didn't know how long this barrier could last for. If there wasn't a barrier, wouldn't they all die under this huge beast's feet? Yiqing Luo's brows creased tightly as she stared at that huge beast which was crawling up, as her eyes narrowed slightly. After some time, she released Dmo Xian's arm. "Let me take a look at the surrounding situation." Dmo Xian's eyes sunk as he tried to grab her arm. Even he didn't know where this huge beast came from, so it was too dangerous to leave the barrier rashly. "I'll ride on Little Nine and take a look in mid-air, nothing will happen." Saying that, Yiqing Luo sat on Little Nine's back. One man and one beast left the barrier and flew straight into mid-air. After leaving the barrier, Yiqing Luo then sensed a gust of stinky wild wind blowing continuously. That huge beast had already stood up and once again attacked towards the direction of the barrier. Yiqing Luo gazed afar and saw that not too far behind the huge beast, densely packed magical beasts were surging over. Just like a beast tide, surging forward in an extremely turbulent manner. What the? Forget about a heaven-defying huge beast, there was even a huge wave of magical beasts. They were going to be trapped in the magic beast forest to death. Lass. Suddenly Old Man Tsang's voice rang in her mind. This is troublesome. Not just troublesome, it was huge trouble. That magical beast. If I didn't recognize wrongly, it should be a 7th level advanced leveled mirage beast. Childine. Old Man Tsang's tone rose, apparently shocked by this huge beast. Even if it's a sky mystic overlord strong practitioner going against Childine, they would also be at a disadvantage, not to mention you all. Yiqing Luo was overwhelmed with shock when she heard that. Her eyes suddenly widened as she stared unbelievably at that huge beast in front of her as her heart thumped. Even a sky mystic overlord is unable to go against it. 7th level. That magic beast forest's legendary level. Till now, no one had ever returned alive after entering the 7th level. How did this child run from the 7th level to the 5th level? In the tens of millions of years of history of the magical beast forest, aside from large-scale beast tides, magical beasts would never cross the boundary that belonged to them. Moreover, even if it was a beast tide, it would at most be one level higher. This child could it be? Yiqing Luo's eyes suddenly sunk as her penetrating eyes reflected a cold glint, her eyes swiftly circling the surroundings. It was simply impossible for a high-level phantom beast of the 7th level to appear on the 5th level. But, if this high-level mirage beast was led here by someone, and the target was them, it was not impossible. Yiqing Luo's vision surveyed the surroundings alertly, as she carefully avoided child Vaguely, Yiqing Luo seemed to have seen a figure among the densely packed magical beasts. When she looked over again, the figure had disappeared without a trace. It was as if it was just an illusion. An illusion. Yiqing Luo frowned as her gaze turned chilly. No, it can't be an illusion. The appearance of these magical beasts and child was indeed premeditated. Was it a ploy by the dark forces? To annihilate everyone who knew about the dark forces' comeback. Like how they massacred the marketplace, to destroy the world group. Yiqing Luo gave a cold laugh as she patted little Nine. The man and beast returned to the array barrier once again. Chapter 586. Child Dmo Xian's expression changed abruptly as that pair of eyes which were filled with brilliance turned biting cold. His brows creased as he looked outside the array barrier at the huge beasts which kept on attacking. It's actually child Yiqing Luo bit her lower lip as her slender hand hooked onto Dmo Xian's arm as she suppressed her voice. There's a huge batch of magical beasts coming over, it seems to be a beast tide. This time round, it would be hard for them to escape from this calamity. Yiqing Luo had always assumed that Dmo Xian's profound grade should be above Sky Mystic, which was Sky Mystic Overlord. Old Man Tsang said that Sky Mystic Overlord's strong exponents were unable to subdue child Indeed. When Dmo Xian heard that the huge beast was child his brows creased into a bundle as his gaze turned vicious. If Dmo Xian was unable to deal with the huge beast, then her brothers. Yiqing Luo recalled that fleeting figure which disappeared amidst the surging magical beasts earlier. Her gaze suddenly turned gloomy as though it was covered with frost. We've been plotted against. She squeezed out every single word from the slits of her teeth. Dmo Xian responded calmly as he stared at child without any change in his expression. Child is a 7th level high-leveled mirage beast and its ability is unfathomable. Furthermore, this mirage beast's nature is extremely lazy. Even if the magical beast forest had collapsed, it might not leave its own nest. If it wasn't for the fact that someone had used extreme methods to awaken child from its nest and was able to lead child who was lazy by nature would not be able to cross the 6th level to attack them at the 5th level. Not too long later, those magical beasts had already dashed to the back of child Instantly, the entire outer boundary of the array barrier was surrounded by densely packed magical beasts. The magical beasts charged at the barrier one after another. After being bounced back, another wave of magical beasts charged at them. When Blue Dragon Mercenary Group's members saw this situation, all of them were dazed. The array barrier was transparent and when these magical beasts charged over, everyone couldn't help but touch their own bodies, feeling that they were about to be trampled by the magical beasts. Their bodies were weak and many of them had already collapsed onto the ground, unable to stand up. Stay further away from me. Who allowed you to touch my noble body? Just when everyone was in a state of panic, a woman's sharp and angry rebuke suddenly rang out. Then, he heard a commotion from the side. Some of the Blue Dragon mercenary group's members could not stand steadily as they fell to the side. This piece of flat ground was not spacious to begin with. After accommodating more than 100 people, it became extremely crowded. Furthermore, they didn't dare to get too close to Yi Qing Luo and the others, hence, those group members all huddled together. When one of them fell, he bumped into the other. A few other members were squeezed out of the barrier and were instantly torn to shreds by the berserk magical beasts. Everyone was horrified. Once they left the barrier, what awaited them would be nothing left of them. Blue Dragon mercenary group's members didn't dare to move at all. One by one, they glared at the person who had stirred up trouble, Lan Ling Nuo. The current Lan Ling Nuo was sitting on a huge rock and Ji Tsang Tian was surrounding her. Lan Ling Nuo straightened her long robe, her face filled with disgust and disdain. What are you staring at? If it wasn't for your group leader, would I even be here today? I'm telling you, if you dare to ruin this beautiful face of mine, leaving a scar on my body, my father will absolutely not let you off. The current her didn't have a single bit of delicateness from before. Chapter 587. Blue Dragon Group's members were so infuriated that they were trembling. Group leader had brought Lan Ling Nuo along to complete the mission in the magical beast forest, and that had already made them extremely unhappy. They were a mercenary group and not an escort team. Everyone knew that group leader admired Lan Ling Nuo, hence he had been asking about her well-being along the way, making it seem as though he was an escort team leading a princess on an outing, so they all tolerated it. Of course, a large part of it was because Lan Ling Nuo was indeed beautiful. With such a beautiful and alluring young lady following in the group, chatting and laughing, it was a good scenery. Even if she threw a little tantrum, that would also be called cute. But, no matter how beautiful she was, at this kind of a time where their lives were at stake, who could tolerate her playing with their little tantrums? Because of Lan Ling Nuo's willfulness, she had pushed a few brothers out of the barrier and they were torn into pieces by those magical beasts, yet she didn't feel a single bit of guilt. She even dared to blame them. These group members' hearts were filled with rage and injustice as it instantly gushed into their hearts. Even Ji Tsang Tian's expression turned slightly ugly. If her place was said to be narrow, then the others simply didn't have a single leg to stand on. Considering that Lan Ling Nuo was a lady and Ji Tsang Tian didn't wish for her to be touched by other men, he carefully made his own group members to leave a spot on this huge rock for her. Forget it if Lan Ling Nuo didn't appreciate it, she even pushed the other group members aside. As intelligent as Lan Ling Nuo, how could she possibly not know the current situation? How could she not know that the slightest movement could possibly cause her to be squeezed out of the barrier? Looking at the group members' vengeful gazes towards Lan Ling Nuo, while Lan Ling Nuo had a fearless look as she stared at him arrogantly, Ji Tsang Tian felt mentally tired for no reason. Brother Tsang Tian, you're the one who coaxed me and brought me here. Don't tell me, you don't want to take responsibility. Lan Ling Nuo raised her teary eyes as she looked at Ji Tsang Tian pitifully. That look in her voice was filled with grievance, as though Ji Tsang Tian had done something to her. After all, she was the lady whom he had admired for so many years. Seeing her tears and her grievance voice, Ji Tsang Tian's heart softened. He sighed helplessly as he stretched out his hand and pulled Lan Ling Nuo into his embrace. I'll take responsibility, I'll take responsibility. This action caused the members to widen their eyes. They didn't expect that their brothers would be torn to pieces by the other magical beasts because of this woman's willfulness. They didn't even have a complete corpse, his regiment commander was actually holding that woman in his arms. Just because that woman shed a few tears. No matter what, the members were unable to accept it. Looking at the members of the Blue Dragon mercenary group, their eyes were burning with rage as they stared at their group leader and Lan Ling Nuo. He knew that they were having an internal conflict because of Lan Ling Nuo. The youngsters in the world group treated it as though they were watching a farce. He felt that the leader of the Blue Dragon group was indeed a short-sighted person. For the sake of a woman, he actually disregarded the life and death of his own brother. It was no wonder that the group members would show such expressions. They absolutely believed that if the same thing happened to Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian, Yiqing Luo would absolutely not allow Dmo Xian to have any chance to hurt them. No, that's not right. It should be said that the Overlord would absolutely not hurt them because of Madame Qing Luo. But Yiqing Luo and the others didn't have the leisure to bother about Blue Dragon Group's farce. Yiqing Luo told Dmo Xian everything that she had seen earlier. I feel that, there's a possibility that it's the dark forces doing. Chapter 588. It's the dark forces. Dmo Xian's peach blossom eyes narrowed slightly and that long and narrow corner of his eyes curled into an arc. It was no longer the usual devilish charm but an icy chill. His slightly narrowed eyes reflected a sharp blade. Yiqing Luo's petite body froze as she immediately followed Dmo Xian's gaze. This one look made Yiqing Luo's pupils dilate in disbelief. If one didn't look closely, one wouldn't be able to tell. On Child Yin's shoulder, there seemed to be a figure wearing a black cloak. That was the disguise of the dark forces. Something's not right. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased. When the beast tide surged over, what I saw wasn't this figure. Although it was just a flash. But she remembered it clearly. Compared to the black-cloaked man, the figure in the middle of the magical beasts was taller and more slender. It looked a little like a woman. In other words, Child Yin was specially manipulated by the dark forces to come to the 5th level to deal with her. And the beast tide was another wave of people who wanted to kill her. Yiqing Luo's brows twitched fiercely for a few times. She didn't seem to have offended anyone, to the extent that she had to take her life. The beast tide is small, the crux is that Child Yin. Dmo Xian raised his hand and stroked her silky hair. If Lil Luo were to open her mouth, I would. Can you? Yiqing Luo's eyes lit up as she stared straight into Dmo Xian's eyes. Dmo Xian's fingers that were caressing her hair curled up slightly as he lightly knocked on her forehead. In your eyes, am I that weak? What he meant was that this Child Yin to him wasn't a fierce beast that was hard to deal with. The reason why his expression turned ugly was because he was worried that Yiqing Luo and the others would be injured when they were dealing with Child Yin. After all, with Yiqing Luo's stubbornness, there was a possibility that she might reject his help. Yiqing Luo clutched her head, but her face was filled with joy and shock, that is to say. Ah Xian, your profound grade is not just sky profound. Dmo Xian's thin lips hooked up slightly as he leaned close to her ear and said with a smile that didn't look like a smile, if Lil Luo gives me some benefits, I don't mind telling you the profound grade. That warm breath faintly brushed past her earlobes. Yiqing Luo's cheeks blushed slightly as she raised her fist and punched towards his chest. Not only was he a sky profound supreme, how strong was he? Obviously. Dmo Xian was only a few years older than her. In the entire Nirvana realm, the number of people who had reached the profound sky realm at his age could be counted on one hand. Not to mention a Sky Xian supreme martial artist. Old Man Tsang, what realm is above the Sky Profound Supreme? Yiqing Luo was really curious. In her memories, the highest realm was the Sky Profound realm. Old Man Tsang muttered to himself for a moment. This old man can only tell you that above the Sky Profound realm is the Sage Profound realm. Furthermore, the grades will be derived from 9 grades to 15 grades, and each grade is divided into 3 levels, the early stage, the middle stage, and the peak stage. In other words, he was telling Yiqing Luo that Dmo Xian's current profound grade was at least at the level of Sage Profound. As for what grade it was, he did not know. Yiqing Luo's heart trembled fiercely as the gaze she shot at Dmo Xian was filled with a sliver of worship. As expected of her man, he was actually so powerful. As for the profound rank after that, wait until you've surpassed the sky profound realm, then you'll naturally know. After Old Man Song finished speaking, he didn't say anything else. It was obvious that he didn't intend to say anything more. Yi-Ching Luo didn't ask any further. She hadn't even broken through the earth profound realm, not to mention the profound rank after the sky profound realm. Everything, when she reached that stage, she would naturally know. Chapter 589. Dmo Xian's brows rose slightly as he understood the meaning behind Yi-Ching Luo's words. She wanted to give it a try, to deal with this Childine. Even if he was unable to kill Childine, battling with a 7th level high-leveled mirage beast would definitely be able to raise his own ability. This was exactly how Yi-Ching Luo believed in Dmo Xian. She had placed her life in Dmo Xian's hands. So what if Childine was powerful? Whether he could do it or not, he would only know after he tried. Especially such a rare opportunity, how could Yi-Ching Luo bear to let it go? If she really couldn't do it, then Dmo Xian would do it. Yi-Ching Luo narrowed her crafty eyes as her little hand hooked onto his smooth lower jaw. Of course, don't think of just standing by the side to watch. That black-cloaked man, I'll leave it to you, the people from the dark forces actually dared to show themselves. If they didn't leave something behind, how could they let them go so easily? TSK, you're so assured of me. Although Dmo Xian's words were filled with grievance, his eyes were filled with adoration, which obviously indicated that he was in a good mood. Yi-Ching Luo believed in his ability, and this was the biggest affirmation towards him. The two of them flirted with each other in a low voice. Their obvious display of affection blinded the eyes of the members of the Blue Dragon group. Especially Lan Ling Nuo, who was nestled in Ji Tsang Tian's arms. Her entire face was twisted, malevolent and terrifying. A nameless flame of jealousy rose in Lan Ling Nuo's heart. She wanted to pull Yi-Ching Luo, who was nestled in Dmo Xian's arms, out, not wanting to see any other woman in that position. This thought caused Lan Ling Nuo's heart to tremble. Could it be that she had feelings for that ordinary-looking man? Actually, although the man's appearance was rather ordinary, his eyes and temperament were like that of a banished immortal. If one only looked at her back, it would be a beautiful scene. Furthermore, his embrace was extremely wide and firm. She had an urge to stay in that embrace forever. She wanted to. Countless thoughts surged in his mind. When these thoughts ran through her mind like crazy, Lan Ling Nuo's expression suddenly sank, and she hurriedly brainwashed herself. No. Impossible. She was just unwilling, but this man was actually not charmed by her beauty. She was jealous of Yi-Ching Luo. It must be because the man whom she was unable to seduce had been seduced by Yi-Ching Luo. That's right, that's it. Hey! You useless team. Why are you still standing there like a fool? Aren't they very powerful? There are so many magical beasts. Aren't you going to kill them? Lan Ling Nuo screeched at Yi-Ching Luo's direction. Her beautiful eyes were filled with anger. Are we going to be trapped here with you bunch of trash today? We're going back to the academy tomorrow. If we don't make it back in time and break my excellent attendance record, I won't forgive you. At the mention of the academy, the other group members all started talking at once. Yes. Tomorrow we have to go to the academy, we can't be trapped here. If our credits are deducted, we won't be able to graduate. Are we going to be trapped here today? Academy. These mercenaries were also from the academy. Yi-Ching Luo squinted her eyes as she sized them up. These people's faces were unfamiliar to her. If they were Heavenly Academy students, she would definitely have an impression of them. These people should be students from other academies. Indeed, Lan Ling Nuo stood up and stood on the huge rock, looking down at Yi-Ching Luo's direction. Chapter 590. We're all heaven-class students in Lady Phoenix Academy, and if half of the students in the class don't make it back to the academy tomorrow, the academy will definitely investigate our whereabouts, and by then, our respective families will be alerted. Lan Ling Nuo's beautiful face revealed a smirk of arrogance. I advise you to escort us out of the magic beast forest safely, otherwise. The minute the academy and families find their way here, you will absolutely not be able to bear the consequences. Hearing Lan Ling Nuo's words, Yi Qing Luo almost burst out laughing. Who gave this fool such confidence? Who made this fool to be so arrogant? Stand out. She absolutely wouldn't slap her face. Sentence after sentence of threats, she really treated herself as something. As a woman, how could Yi Qing Luo possibly not tell that Lan Ling Nuo's eyes which was unable to conceal jealousy? Yi Qing Luo really laughed out loud at this moment. She raised her eyes and stared at the man beside her as she shook her head helplessly. This man's charm was unstoppable. He had already disguised himself into such an ordinary look, yet he was still able to capture the heart of Lan Ling Nuo, who thought she was the most beautiful woman in the entire world. She had no choice but to admire Dmo Xian's charm. Dmo Xian put on an innocent look as he shrugged and shook his head. I didn't do anything. If you do anything, she will become even crazier. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows rose slightly as her charming eyes swept towards Lan Ling Nuo. After some time, she revealed an arc which didn't look like a smile. This arc was filled with an icy chill. Following that, Yi Qing Luo placed her hands behind her back as she strolled towards Lan Ling Nuo. That arrogant and condescending imposing manner forced the surrounding Blue Dragon Group's members to open up a path. Who do you think you are? The world group is powerful and incredible, but if we don't kill these magical beasts, what can you do to us? That devastatingly beautiful face was obviously smiling, but the words that she spat out made one feel as though they were in an ice house. Immediately after, Yi Qing Luo continued, if you don't want to be trapped together with us, then scram out of our enchantment. If you don't want to break your academy's excellent attendance record, then scram out of our enchantment. As for your academy, your families and whatnot, what has it got to do with us? Now I am suspecting that these magical beasts were attracted by your Blue Dragon mercenary group. Sentence after sentence was spat out from Yi Qing Luo's mouth icily. There was a hint of disdain in her eyes as she sneered. Her smile grew wider as she said, trash that relies on us to survive, who gave you the guts to shout here? The last sentence was said by Yi Qing Luo word by word, and it was directed at Lan Ling Nuo. Anyone who dared to covet her, Yi Qing Luo's man, had to see if she agreed to it or not. She even dared to slander him time and time again. Did she really think that everyone had to love her? Yi Qing Luo had never talked about such feelings before. But in her understanding, the so-called love could not tolerate the slightest grain of sand. Between her and Dmo Xian, she would absolutely not allow anyone to come between them. Even if Dmo Xian didn't have any feelings for Lan Ling Nuo, and couldn't even remember what Lan Ling Nuo looked like. But she wouldn't allow it. You could say that she was overbearing or selfish, but to her, feelings were just like that. You. Lan Ling Nuo was choked by Yi Qing Luo as her face flushed red, as she was so stunned that she couldn't even say a single word of rebuttal. Lan Ling Nuo was obviously standing on the huge rock, wanting to say that she was able to suppress Yi Qing Luo's arrogance by looking down at her. But at this moment, she was so intimidated by Yi Qing Luo that she started to tremble. Chapter 591. Miss. Your words are too serious. Ji Tian eventually couldn't bear to see his beloved woman being bullied by others as he went up to pull Lan Ling Nuo into his arms. Is it serious? Yi Qing Luo gave a light laugh as her brows were filled with coquettish charm. You who depend on us to survive, when you're arrogantly ordering us around, why don't you say it's serious? Ji Tian's words were dry as his face turned steely green, young lady, we are Celestial Phoenix Academy students and I'm East Water Continent's G family's young master. Sister Noah is the East Water Monarch's sister. On account of our G family and the royal family's face, today's matter. Before he could finish his words, he saw Yi Qing Luo raising her palm to stop his words. Following that, the feather fan in Yi Qing Luo's fingertips moved and a bewitching red glow pressed towards him. Ji Tsang Tian had not expected Yi Qing Luo to make a move just like that as he was stunned momentarily, and in his fluster, he hugged Lan Ling Nuo as he turned around and leapt up. However, he had forgotten that he was currently in a spirit formation. With this leap, he leaped out of the spirit formation. A pungent stench entered their noses. The deafening howls of the demonic beasts pierced their eardrums. Countless birds and beasts pounced on the two of them like lightning upon seeing them leap out of the spirit formation. They were so densely packed that the two of them turned pale with fright. Luckily Ji Tsang Tian's reaction was swift as he immediately returned to the array barrier. Just as he was about to explode his anger towards Yi Qing Luo, he saw that enchanting woman holding a cold arc with a smile that didn't look like a smile, her feather fan pressed against her pink lips as she laughed lightly. What has your status got to do with me? Just a few simple words were enough to inflict a heavy blow on the two of them. All along, he had thought that his incomparably noble identity, in Yi Qing Luo's eyes, couldn't even stir up a single ripple. Could it be, this woman's status was even higher than theirs? It was no wonder that they didn't know Yi Qing Luo's identity. They had only heard of the World Group's name but were unable to investigate the information of the World Group's members. Because before this, no one had ever seen this group of youths. As for Yi Qing Luo's identity and the news of these youngsters coming out from the Imperial Palace, only the people in West Continent's Three Springs City knew about it. Ji Tsang Tian hugged Lan Ling Nuo as his pride had been unknowingly trampled into dregs by Yi Qing Luo. However, at this moment, he couldn't say a single word. He was completely stunned by Yi Qing Luo's imposing manner. However, Lan Ling Nuo was relentless. She had never suffered such humiliation before. Ever since she was a child, she had been the proud daughter of the heavens. Relying on her beautiful face, her life in the East Continent had been smooth sailing. She could be called a queen whose status was second only to her cousin, Junimo Xia. Who didn't bow and scrape when they saw her? Why was he humiliated by an unknown nobody in the Western Continent? Well done. How dare you look down on the dignity of our Eastern Continent's imperial family? Lan Ling Nuo popped her head out from Ji Tsang Tian's arms as her face was filled with anger. Just you wait till I return to East Continent. I want my royal cousin to send troops to invade your West Continent. Sister Nuo. Ji Tsang Tian pressed down on Lan Ling Nuo's head as his brows creased tightly as he cried out in a low voice, "Stop talking. You're afraid of her but I'm not." Lan Ling Nuo's chest heaved up and down as she couldn't help but grumble that Ji Tsang Tian was a big coward. If they were to lose today, wouldn't it make West Continent's people think that their East Continent was easy to bully? Thinking in this way, Lan Ling Nuo's expression turned even gloomier. But her words had just ended when she felt a gust of cold wind blowing against her face and immediately felt an icy coldness on her neck. Not knowing when, Yi Qing Luo was already standing in front of her. Chapter 592. Lan Ling Nuo looked down and saw a slender wrist that was as smooth as jade. The slender fingers were tightly wrapped around her neck. The coldness of his fingertips was like ice melting on her neck. Lan Ling Nuo's petite body suddenly stiffened as her pupils enlarged, staring at Yi Qing Luo in disbelief. How did Yi Qing Luo appear in front of her? And how did he choke her? Ji Tsang Tian was actually sent flying. Before she could even react, she was restrained by Yi Qing Luo. At this very moment, Lan Ling Nuo deeply felt Yi Qing Luo's power. She absolutely believed that Yi Qing Luo wasn't simply trying to scare her. He really did not put her status in his eyes at all. He really wanted to kill her. Lan Ling Nuo was scared. Her beautiful face was pale with fright, and her entire body started to tremble. Seeing her in this state, Yiqing Luo's brows revealed a sweet arc, as she was extremely enchanting. Today you're standing on our West Continent soil, even if you're the emperor, you'll have to be obedient. Following that, Yiqing Luo's 5 fingers suddenly increased the strength. Lan Ling Nuo widened her eyes in terror. She kept extending her hands, trying to pry open the clamp on her neck. But she didn't even have the chance to move, let alone lift her hand. Ji Tsangtian saw this and his eyes were filled with pain. He wanted to go up to help Lan Ling Nuo, but after the group members supported him, they held on to his arms. The arrogant and willful Lan Ling Nuo indeed needed someone to take her down a peg. It was also time to let Lan Ling Nuo know that not everyone should revolve around her. Either shut up or get lost, or I'll throw you out right now. Yiqing Luo didn't have any protective feelings for the fairer sex as she dropped this sentence and released her hand. Without Yiqing Luo's support, Lan Ling Nuo's entire person was like a pile of mud, softly lying on the huge rock. Her beautiful face was as pale as a sheet of paper, and there was even a hint of ashen. Filled with resentment, Lan Ling Nuo didn't dare to speak another word. No one stood on her side, and no one was willing to speak up for her. Even Ji Tsangtian didn't speak up for her. Lan Ling Nuo felt that the whole world had betrayed her. Obviously all these were Ji Tsangtian's fault. It was Ji Tsangtian who brought her to the magical beast forest without any explanation, and it was Ji Tsangtian who admired her beauty. On what basis was it that when something happened to her, he didn't care about her at all? Lan Ling Nuo's eyes were filled with intense hatred, and her facial features were hideous and twisted. Ji Tsangtian, who was originally standing by the side, preparing to head up to appease Yiqing Luo after she left, when he saw her in this state, he instantly shuddered. Was this still the smart and kind Sister Nuo in his heart? When he saw those eyes filled with hatred, he trembled with fear. At the same time, at the entrance to the first level of the magical beast forest, more than a dozen men in black clothes were hiding in the forest with sharp broadswords in their hands. The leader of the group was a black-robed man. Although he was also dressed in black, the material he was wearing was obviously smooth silk, which was of a much higher grade than the other black-robed men. Furthermore, the black-clothed man was wearing a jade crown inlaid with a few gems. He stood in front of the 10 over black-robed men as he stuck his head out to look towards the direction of the entrance, as though he was waiting for something. "Fourth young master, you'd better rest in the forest for a while. We'll keep a close watch on you." A black-robed man behind spoke out speechlessly. They were assassins. Assassins. Chapter 593. Having such a silly master, they started to doubt if they could complete today's assassination mission. "Don't worry about me. The moment I think about how I can hold Yiqing Luo, that little slut, in my palm and play with her however I want, I feel delighted." That black-robed man who was addressed as fourth young master gave a sinister sneer as he clenched the long sword in his hand. As though he recalled the scene which he had described, he raised his head and laughed heartily. 10 over killers. This fourth young master wasn't anyone else but Yuchi family's fourth young master, Yuchi. Yuchi family's patriarch had lost his face in front of so many commoners and became the joke of the entire Three Springs city. How could Yuchi family's patriarch take this lying down? So he naturally pushed all the blame onto Yiqing Luo. Yesterday, on account of Mu Zifan's Alchemist Guild's chief token, he let Yiqing Luo off. But today, he absolutely must kill Yiqing Luo. Hence, he sent his secret guards to the mansion early in the morning to inquire about the world group's whereabouts. Then he heard that they were going to the Magic Beast Forest to complete a mission. What kind of place was the Magic Beast Forest? That was a place where danger lurked in all directions, and if they were not careful, they would lose their lives there. They only needed to kill Yiqing Luo and the others after she came out. If Yiqing Luo and the others died, the outsiders would only think that they had met with danger while they were completing a mission in the magic beast forest. Who would suspect the Yuqi family? When Yuqi family's patriarch instructed the killers, it was coincidentally heard by Yuqiya. He and Yiqing Luo originally had an irreconcilable enmity and had been looking for an opportunity to take revenge on her. But unfortunately Yiqing Luo had entered the Heavenly Academy and was locked in the academy for a month, so where would he get the chance to take revenge? This time round, Yiqing Luo had offended the entire Yuqi family. His father would definitely not let Yiqing Luo off, and after crossing hands, he knew Yiqing Luo and the others' skills and ability. The killers he sent out would definitely be top-rated experts. Yuqiya immediately volunteered and led 10 over high-leveled killers to wait outside the magic beast forest. Those killers racked their brains and discussed if they should directly knock Yuqiya unconscious and wake him up after the mission was completed. Suddenly they heard Yuqiya's cry of shock, someone is coming out, it's a person. Saying this, Yuqiya's entire head shrank back into the thicket. The other assassins immediately held their breaths and hid in the dark. Sure enough, a figure dressed in a long black robe appeared at the entrance that was filled with dense foliage and eerie yin qi. That figure was extremely slender, and one could tell at a glance that it was a woman. Yuqiya's brows creased tightly. Could it be that Yiqing Luo knew that there were killers lying in ambush at the entrance and intentionally used this method to avoid detection? Just as he was about to charge forward and restrain the woman, a figure suddenly appeared in front of him. However, he discovered that after the woman walked out of the entrance, there was a large group of giant magical beasts following closely behind her. The magical beasts stopped at the edge of the entrance and did not step out. Even if Yuqiya didn't understand the ways of the world, he still knew that each and every one of those magical beasts were at least mid-level or above. There were also quite a number of high-level magical beasts mixed in. Magical beasts also had their own rules of survival. These mid to high-level magical beasts would never come below the third tier. Not only was Yuqiya stupefied, even those experienced and knowledgeable assassins behind him were stupefied. This was the first time they saw so many mid to high-level magical beasts appearing at the entrance of the magic beast forest. Looking at it, there were at least 20 over of them. This woman was absolutely not Yiqing Luo. Chapter 594. The black-robed lady could control a group of beasts. She was absolutely not an ordinary lady. Yuqiya had totally treated this lady as an otherworldly expert, as even his breathing became cautious, afraid that the lady would discover them. Luckily, the lady bade farewell to those magical beasts and immediately turned around to leave. The lady had just turned around when coincidentally a light breeze blew over. The lady's black robe on her head was lifted, revealing half of her exquisite and beautiful side face as well as a black arc at the corner of her eyes, which made her look extremely amorous. That was... Yuqiya felt as though he was struck by lightning as he stared at that lady in disbelief. Even though her makeup had changed, he could still recognize her at one glance. Wasn't she? Within the array barrier, Blue Dragon Mercenary Group's atmosphere had sunk into a state of low spirits. The group members, group leader and Lan Ling Nua all developed feelings of rejection. On the contrary, on Yiqing Luo's side, all the youngsters stood quietly on the spot. Without the group leader or vice group leader's instructions, no one spoke up first and no one moved at all, quietly waiting for them to think of a way. Yiqing Luo discussed her and Dmo Xian's plan with Long Yunzhan and the others. When everyone heard that this huge beast was Child Yin from the 7th level, their expressions turned ugly. 7th level. That was the legendary level. In the entire West continent, they had only heard of it but had never seen it before. A mirage beast which had walked out from the legendary level, moreover it was a high-leveled mirage beast. It was imaginable how difficult it was to deal with. Although Qiao Jin felt that doing this was too risky and if they were not careful, they could easily lose their lives. But in the end, he couldn't resist Yi Qing Luo's insistence. He took a look at the overlord and realized that the overlord didn't say a word with a calm expression, so he finally compromised. The overlord valued Yi Qing Luo more than anyone else, and with him around, nothing would happen. After the few of them agreed, Yi Qing Luo then turned around and looked at those young faces behind her as she smiled faintly. Group leader, and I will deal with the huge beast. The surrounding beast tide will be handed over to you and those from Blue Dragon Group, no problem, right? Although these words were said to the World Group's youngsters, but in actual fact, it was said for Blue Dragon Group's members. Ji Tsangtian was stunned as he turned his head to look outside the array barrier. Those fierce-looking magical beasts were slightly terrified as they hesitated, not daring to respond. These were magical beasts, batches of mid to high-level magical beasts. At least, there were over 100 of them. They could deal with one or two, but with so many magical beasts, weren't they just sending themselves to death? There was no response from the other side, so how would Yi Qing Luo not understand what Blue Dragon Group was thinking? She sneered, if you want to live, then rely on your own strength to rush out of danger. Otherwise, just wait to become the food of these magical beasts. The barrier can't last forever. Following that, Yi Qing Luo couldn't be bothered to interact with them any further as she directly told the World Group's youngsters about some matters to take note of. For example, the surroundings were filled with trees. He could make use of the trees to nimbly avoid the demonic beasts before launching an attack. It was also commonly known as a kite. For example, although magical beasts had their own consciousness, they were still magical beasts. The figure that led the horde of beasts was no longer nearby, which meant that there was no one commanding these magical beasts. These demonic beasts were definitely attacking randomly. All they had to do was to attack the low-level magical beasts in an orderly manner, defeating them one by one, and disrupting the entirety of the magical beasts. These little tricks were easy to say, but how much they could comprehend would depend on the comprehension ability of these youths. Chapter 595. Child Yin's body was tall and sturdy, like a huge mountain. It sensed Yi Qing Luo and Dmo Xian's appearance, or perhaps its target was the both of them. With a leap, it pounced towards them. This was as though a huge mountain was collapsing right in front of them. Yi Qing Luo and Dmo Xian's gazes met and the both of them flipped sideways at the same time. One struck towards Child Yin's head while the other turned into a black shadow, and in a blink of an eye, it had already merged into the air. Yi Qing Luo's figure was outstanding as the feather fan on her fingertips kept on spinning, stirring up thousands of miles of wind as it shot out numerous silver wires, winding around Child Yin's head. Those few silver wires directly wound around Child Yin's neck, winding several rounds. Just as Yi Qing Luo was preparing to tighten the silver wires, she saw Child Yin's two huge and sturdy arms' muscles tensing up. A loud sound was heard as those iron wires directly broke apart. Boom, 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 Child Yin's legs smashed heavily onto the ground. In a split second, the earth quaked and the mountain swayed as the ground started to crack, revealing many cracks. Even the people in the array barrier couldn't help but be affected. Everyone was shaken till they were on the verge of collapsing, almost falling out of the array barrier. Some of the surrounding magical beasts weren't able to evade in time as they fell right into the cracks which had opened up. Momentarily, the entire fifth level had sunk into unprecedented chaos. At this moment, Long Yunzhan and the others moved. Their movements were agile and their speed was extremely fast, like a bolt of lightning, as they charged towards Child Yin. Seeing the group leader and the other bosses starting to move, the World Group's youngsters remembered what Yi Qing Luo said earlier as they all started to join in the battle. Now was the best opportunity to attack. The ground kept on cracking. Those magical beasts' speed was fast and they had intelligence, but between the same species, there would always be cases of mutual biting and brawling. Not to mention that right now, there were various kinds of magical beasts gathered together. Under the situation where there was no one to command them, the magical beast sensed danger from the cracks in the ground and didn't care if the opposite party was a friend or foe. All they cared about was biting and killing. Magical beasts' desire to live was much stronger than humans. After Amo Han Shang dashed out of the enchantment, he speedily stepped on a magical beast which was stuck in a crack on the ground. With a wave of his long sword, he swiftly chopped off the magical beast's head. They had won morale for this battle with the demonic beasts. The youngsters in the world group felt their blood boiling as their eyes brimmed with hope and determination of youth. This scene made the members of the Blue Dragon group feel that the passion that had been extinguished by the mission and the development of the mercenary group seemed to have returned. He'd cultivated to become a profounder and joined a mercenary group because he wanted to become strong and prove his ability. Who doesn't have their own dream of being a hero? Looking at the fearless youths killing the demonic beasts in front of them in an orderly manner, Zhang Xian felt a chill run down his spine. In their hearts, a surge of passionate blood was rippling. Leader! Leader! Numerous group members turned their gazes towards Ji Tsangtian. They wanted to go out and fight. They wanted to leave the barrier and fight for themselves, for the mercenary group. That female group leader of the world group was right. If he wanted to live, he would have to rely on his own strength to rush out of danger and work hard to find an opportunity to survive. The barrier couldn't possibly last for an entire lifetime. Even if it could last for an entire lifetime, they couldn't possibly stay in the barrier forever, not going anywhere at all. Ji Tsangtian was the same. He naturally heard Yi Qing Luo and the others' discussion. That huge beast was a high-leveled mirage beast which came from the 7th level. Even a sky mystic overlord strong exponent was unable to kill it. Chapter 596. It was the same for the others. Didn't they know that a high-leveled mirage beast from the 7th level wasn't something that people like them could go against? No, they knew. They knew the dangers of going against high-leveled mirage beasts. But they still charged up without any hesitation. Because they trusted each other. Willing to attempt to cross hands with danger, willing to challenge the impossible. This was the true way of a strong practitioner. Ji Tsangtian recalled how he ridiculed the world group as a trash group, ridiculing Yi Qing Luo and the others for only knowing how to chat leisurely while making his own group members do the mission, so he was extremely ashamed. Just as he was about to open his mouth, his chest was suddenly tugged by someone and following that, he heard a lady's gentle voice trembling, "Don't go. Brother Tsangtian, don't go." Lan Ling Nuo suppressed the anger in her eyes as she tried her best to put on a frightened look, as one hand hugged Ji Tsangtian's waist tightly. Her other hand was holding on to Ji Tsangtian's lapel as she buried her soft petite body into his embrace. She absolutely could not let Ji Tsangtian help that trash group. Recalling everything that Yi Qing Luo had done to her earlier, Lan Ling Nuo's heart was filled with rage. From what she saw, Blue Dragon Group's members leaving the array barrier to kill the other magical beasts was helping that wretched woman. That wretched woman was her enemy, which meant that she was also Ji Tsangtian's enemy, which meant that she was the entire Blue Dragon mercenary group's enemy. "I'll accompany you." Ji Tsangtian's hand which was holding his lapel was soft as though it had no bones, carrying a lady's fragrance. Ji Tsangtian's heart was pounding furiously as he lowered his eyes and looked at the lady in his arms affectionately. Suddenly, he was grateful for this accident. His sister Nuo had already started to rely on him and knew how to automatically snuggle up to him. Did this mean that Lan Ling Nuo had actually liked him all along? This thought made Ji Tsangtian's lips uncontrollably curl into a smile as his palm tightened, hugging the delicate lady even tighter. "Sister Nuo, don't be afraid, Brother Tsangtian will always be by your side." The surrounding group members were still waiting for Ji Tsangtian's command. Originally being infected by the world group's youngsters and being hot-blooded, when he saw this scene filled with deep emotions, the hot-blooded blood in his heart was suddenly extinguished. As a result, they became even more disgusted with Lan Ling Nuo. It was already a matter of life and death, yet she was still displaying her princess temper. Did she really think that she was still in the East Continent's imperial palace, that she was still that spoiled and willful Princess Ling Nuo? At first, he thought that Lan Ling Nuo was intelligent and likable. Now, he felt that Lan Ling Nuo was as dumb as a pig. They simply couldn't be bothered to ask for Ji Tsang Tian's opinion. Anyway, their group leader was prepared to accompany this willful little princess. He gripped his weapon tightly and prepared to rush out of the barrier. Stop! Lan Ling Nuo suddenly popped her head out from Ji Tsang Tian's arms as she stared coldly at those group members. All of you are not allowed to go. Stay here with me. Princess Ling Nuo. Sister Nuo. Group members and Ji Tsang Tian opened their mouths at the same time. The group members couldn't understand the princess's train of thought. They were flirting with each other here. Did they need someone else to accompany them? Ji Tsang Tian was astonished as his handsome brows creased slightly. Sister Nuo, don't worry, I alone can protect you. He thought that Lan Ling Nuo didn't believe in his own ability. Chapter 597. F***K. The group members' hearts were filled with curses as they wanted to burst out with vulgarities. Was there something wrong with this princess's brain? In the past they thought that Lan Ling Nuo was intelligent or whatever, they were absolutely blind. Looking at the anger in the group members' eyes and their tightly clenched fists, Lan Ling Nuo's expression changed slightly as she immediately buried her head into Ji Tsang Tian's arms as she sobbed, Brother Tsang Tian. Brother Tsang Tian. I don't allow you to help that slut. I don't allow it. She was sobbing softly as she whimpered in grievance. Every now and then, she would raise her eyes which were stained with tears as she looked pitifully at Ji Tsang Tian. I know that you've taken a fancy to that slut's beauty and you feel that she's beautiful. You want to save her and help her. Brother Tsang Tian, tell me, have you also taken a fancy to that slut? Don't you want Noah anymore? This round of unreasonable pestering made the surrounding group members' mouths agape as their faces were filled with disbelief as their jaws almost dropped onto the ground. What? What on earth was Lan Ling Nuo thinking about in her mind? Leaving the array barrier to kill the magical beasts was helping the world group. What was she thinking? Damn it, they went out to kill the magical beasts, obviously for the sake of survival, for the entire Blue Dragon mercenary group. However, Ji Tsang Tian's attention was placed on Lan Ling Nuo's last sentence. Don't want her anymore. How could he possibly bear to not want her? Ji Tsang Tian's heart was melted by Lan Ling Nuo's tears. His large palm gently patted Lan Ling Nuo's back as he spoke in a gentle tone. How could that be? How could I possibly take a fancy to another woman? Sister Nuo, you know that from the moment I met you 4 years ago, I've always been admiring you. The feelings which had always been suppressed in his heart finally came out. Ji Tsang Tian's heart was pounding like thunder. He waited anxiously for Lan Ling Nuo's reply. Lan Ling Nuo stared with a pair of misty eyes as she blinked and a shade of red instantly surfaced on her face as she buried herself into Ji Tsang Tian's arms. She didn't reply but her actions were the best answer. Ji Tsang Tian was so excited that he was about to scream out. His arms hugged Lan Ling Nuo tightly. The woman whom he had admired for so many years had finally agreed to become his woman. Commander. Are we really just going to sit here and wait for death? One of the members clenched his fists tightly and shouted in a low, gruff voice. Let's talk about it later. Ji Tsang Tian replied without even turning his head back. In other words, none of them were allowed to leave the barrier. None of them were allowed to leave the barrier. Leader. The group members trembled in disbelief. They couldn't understand how their leader could be so mesmerized by beauty. Didn't you hear what your sister-in-law said, not to let you help the world group? Ji Tsang Tian's voice suddenly turned gloomy as his imposing aura started to spread out as he berated them. In the world group, he had already lost his face in front of Lan Ling Nuo. He absolutely couldn't let Lan Ling Nuo feel that he couldn't even control his own brother. The guild members gripped the weapons in their hands tightly and sat back down on the cracked ground without saying a word. They were mercenaries. The most important thing for a mercenary was to obey orders. This scene was caught by Yiqing Luo, who was dealing with Childine from afar. There was no other expression on her face, only a disdainful sneer. It was no wonder that after developing to 900 over people, they were still a bronze plate mercenary group. No matter how strong their ability was, they were still a failure as humans. Under this kind of situation, they had already lost their lives, but they still had the leisure to flirt around. Ha! She was indeed a femme fatale. Yiqing Luo scoffed softly as her gaze refocused onto the huge mountain-like Childine. Chapter 598. That black-cloaked man didn't escape speedily this time round because he had been discovered. On the contrary, he met Dmo Xian's attack head-on as he struck out a burst of powerful black qi. That black qi was like a soft snake as it coiled towards Dmo Xian. Apparently, the black-cloaked man had 100% confidence that he could kill everyone present. Dmo Xian's expression remained calm, and when the black qi coiled around him, he stretched out his finger and made a casual sweep. That black qi instantly dissipated. Following that, Dmo Xian's black hair, which was like smoke, spread out on his shoulders as it fluttered without any wind. He was dressed in black, and that bundle of cherry blossom totem on his arm, under this scenario, seemed to have turned into a real flame as it kept on burning. In just a blink of an eye, that flame had already enveloped the black-cloaked man, as though he was using fire to burn the other party. In the array barrier, Blue Dragon mercenary group's members were simply dumbstruck as they watched. Who on earth were these people? Who was that black-cloaked man? Furthermore, that black-cloaked man seemed to have been flipped down from Child Yin's shoulder. Which meant to say, Child Yin was lured over by this black-cloaked man. A person who was able to control 7th level advanced leveled mirage beasts. How powerful was he? But in the hands of this ordinary-looking young man, he was so easily subdued. Just at this moment, that black-cloaked man who was enveloped in flames emitted a gloomy and cold black qi. The surrounding 10 miles of air instantly congealed. It was as if even breathing was an eerie feeling. Hold your breaths. Dmo Xian's cold and calm voice rang leisurely. His tone was emotionless as his vision shot towards the direction of the world group's youngsters who were fighting bravely. Following that, the wind from his palm moved as it split that congealed air into half. Whereas this split gave the youngsters time to react. They speedily held their breaths as the actions of killing the magical beasts in their hands didn't stop. Yiqing Luo understood. That black-cloaked man released his profounding qi to extinguish the profound fire which Dmo Xian had congealed using his profound qi. The profounding qi, which came from the dark forces, when released in this way, was poisonous. If these youngsters were to breathe it into their bodies, they would definitely be affected by the black qi. The look of Yiqing Ling and Yuqi Ping being swallowed and controlled by the profounding qi, Yiqing Luo still remembered it clearly. After the black gas on the black-cloaked man dissipated, he prepared to head towards the direction of Child Yin. Ignoring him, Dmo Xian had already turned into a black shadow and stuck to the back of the black-cloaked man. That's enough. Just a few simple words were spat out from Dmo Xian's mouth, and those youths whose faces were flush red speedily started to pant heavily. However, from the beginning to the end, they had never cooperated with each other. This is what a team should be. Suddenly, someone beside him let out a sigh. The other members also followed that person's gaze and looked over. Instantly, his body stiffened and tensed up. Ever since the Blue Dragon mercenary group was established, they felt that they belonged to the same group. But after seeing the world group's cooperation today, these group members finally understood what was called a team and what was called trust. Danger lurked in every corner, but they arranged for their men to disperse in an orderly manner. Moreover, they were extremely confident that their comrades would be able to obtain victory. They only went against their own target and wouldn't bother about the other target's actions, completely trusting their brothers. Every single one of them wasn't working hard for themselves, but for their brothers, for their team. Chapter 599. Outside the array barrier, those young figures were fighting bravely while bathed in blood. The ground was filled with magical beasts' corpses as blood flowed like a river. Their clothes had already been dyed red. Some belonged to the magical beasts, some belonged to them and some belonged to their companions. Each and every one of them waved the weapons in their hands tirelessly. The way they cooperated well with each other to kill the magical beasts, some were simple and violent, some were despicable and played dirty, and there were also. But no matter which one it was, their coordination rhythm would not be disrupted at all. Looking towards Yiqing Luo's side, it was even more exciting. The man who was facing Child Yin right in front didn't hold any weapon and just used his bare fists to resist all of Child Yin's attacks, attracting Child Yin's attention. He kept on shifting his body and his speed was extremely fast, but it just so happened to control Child Yin completely within the attack range of his other brothers. While he was moving, he kept on trying to find Child Yin's Achilles heel. The most shocking thing was that pair of azure blue eyes and that expressionless face. Looking at the right side, that young man who was holding a gold coin dart in his hands. Every single time the gold coin dart was waved, no matter how fast Child Yin's speed was, it would definitely leave some traces on Child Yin's body. Whereas that young lady behind Child Yin had exquisite and sweet looks as her lips curled into a smile. But her hands were holding onto a pair of crescent moon-shaped sickles, as she waved them around in an overbearing manner. She kept on shifting and leaping, maintaining herself behind Child Yin as she waved her sickles, chopping fiercely onto Child Yin's back. Standing on Child Yin's left was a pink-robed young lady, as petite as an 11 or 12-year-old child. She was leaping and shuttling around Child Yin's body. Her pink dress was like a pink pair of wings as the bells on her wrist gave off a crisp ringing sound. That Lolita's sweet expressionless face was in a daze, without any expression at all. Those two pink furry balls on her long dress had now turned into 1,000 caddies' heavy iron hammer, becoming her weapon, and it could be retracted as she wished. It was obviously just an ornament, but when the furry balls swept past, it crashed into a thick and sturdy big tree, directly chopping that big tree into two. What shocked these group members the most was the lady standing in the air above Child Yin. She held a red feather fan in her hand, and every time she waved it, the feather fan would turn into blazing flames as profound chi was released, turning into thousands of sharp blades as they covered the sky and covered the earth as they shot towards Child Yin. Immediately after, numerous silver threads entangled Child Yin once again. There was a faint smile on her beautiful face from beginning to end. However, her pair of charming eyes reflected a piercingly cold light. Just a glance at them would cause one's entire body to tremble. The members of the Blue Dragon group suddenly understood why the youths were killing the demonic beasts on the 4th level, while they just stood by and watched. Because they were too strong. He was so powerful that he could easily kill those magical beasts with just a flick of his finger. They were using their own methods to train these youths. However, when they encountered truly powerful and dangerous giant beasts, they would directly resist them. Leader, I'm sorry. We have to join this battle. Leader, I'm a mercenary. I'm a real man. I can't let a woman destroy our Blue Dragon mercenary group. One by one, the group members stood up and walked out of the array barrier without even turning their heads back. No matter how exasperated Lan Ling Nuo was, no one turned their heads back. Ji Tsang Tian looked at those group members who were scolding hysterically as his brows kept twitching. Chapter 600. In the entire Blue Dragon mercenary group, there were only 20 over people left in the array barrier. Perhaps it was because they obeyed Ji Tsang Tian's orders, or perhaps they were afraid of the magical beasts outside the array barrier. Seeing that there were at least some members who obeyed his orders and stayed behind, Ji Tsang Tian's expression turned slightly gentler. The current Yi Qing Luo's profound qi kept on gushing out as she stepped on the feather fan, releasing a strong airflow, confusing Child Yin's vision. Standing at a close distance on Child Yin's head, Yi Qing Luo finally saw Child Yin's looks clearly. This Child Yin's name wasn't called out randomly. Instead, it was the huge face of this giant illusory beast that clearly outlined the appearance of a child. An enlarged version of a child's looks. It had eyes, a mouth and a nose, with distinct features. A pair of bronze bell-sized eyes, filled with a bloodthirsty baleful aura. This kind of gaze, appearing on this 4 to 5 month old child's face, was extremely strange. Qing Luo, this monster's skin is rough and our attacks don't cause much damage to it. After Qiao Jin shot out a gold coin dart, he raised his head and looked at Yi Qing Luo who was standing on top. This kind of battle of attrition, although the few of them's coordination wouldn't hurt themselves. But in the long run, their profound qi would eventually dry up. If their profound heart jade was unable to supply profound qi in time, they would not be able to maintain their current rhythm. They had already tried it for close to 1 hour and their actions and attacks started to slow down. But Child Yin was still extremely ferocious as it attacked Long Yun Zhan at an extremely fast speed. Perhaps it had spent too much time and Child Yin was already impatient from their harassment. Its bronze bell-like eyes became increasingly sinister and treacherous. This isn't a solution. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows creased slightly. Her peripheral vision shot towards Dmo Xian's direction. She saw Dmo Xian floating in midair as he met that black-cloaked man's palms. Following that, the both of them retreated at the same time and a burst of faintly discernible black qi started to spread out between their palms. Yi Qing Luo's expression congealed. Profound yin qi. That black-cloaked man was still releasing energy from the dark forces during the battle. The other party was able to use profound yin qi freely. This person's status in the dark forces was absolutely not low. The most important thing now was Dmo Xian affected by the profound yin qi? The worst thing about fighting with someone from the dark forces was that the dark forces would release the mysterious yin qi during the fight. If one's temperament was unstable, they would definitely be affected by the mysterious yin qi. Although she had absolute confidence in Dmo Xian, she still couldn't help but worry. Following that, they saw Dmo Xian retreating a few steps as a ray of resplendent white light enveloped his entire body. The mass of black qi instantly vanished into nothingness. In this ball of white light, Dmo Xian's peerless countenance was like the descent of a deity. "Sister!" There was a panicked cry, and then a small figure rushed over. Yi Qing Luo's arm tightened as her body swiftly shifted to the side. Bang, only to see Child Yin's muscular arm flashing past his eyes. Just a step's distance away and this palm had already landed on Yi Qing Luo. If Child Yin were to land a palm on him, even if he didn't die, he would be crippled. When he turned his head, he saw a pair of eyes filled with worry. It was Li Mao. When the few of them saw that, they immediately increased the speed of their attacks, attempting to divert Child Yin's attention away from Kitty Li. After all, Kitty Li was just a little girl. Even if he was fast, nimble, and strong, he would not be able to withstand it. But in the eyes of Qiao Jin and the rest, Kitty Li was like a little sister. The few of them kept releasing their Xian Qi. However, Child Yin only stared at Kitty Li who was still sprawled on him. Although its tail was not its Achilles heel, compared to other parts of its body, it was its bottom line. This human who was emitting a cat stench not only used her claws to cut its tail, she even attempted to chop off its tail. How could Childine not only stare at Kitty Lee? Whereas to it, the others were merely tickling. Chapter 602. In a moment of desperation, she didn't aim at Child Yin's neck, but directly shot towards its eyes. The eyes were the weakest part of humans. Naturally, it was the weakest part of beasts. Yiqing Luo didn't believe that this Childine was so powerful that it could train its entire body into an impenetrable copper and iron wall. Child Yin's attention was focused on Kitty Lee. It was because it was overly confident of itself, so towards Yiqing Luo's attack, it had no reaction at all. Those strands of silver threads kept on revolving, like silver needles, as one after another shot directly into its copper bell-sized eyes. Roar, 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 a sharp howl instantly reverberated throughout the entire magic beast forest. Yes, the entire magic beast forest was eerily cold, and because of this howl, the earth quaked and the mountain swayed violently. Blood spurted out from its eyes. Childine was in so much pain that it grimaced in pain, as it raised its hand and broke those strands of silver threads which had pierced into its eyes. Child Yin's reaction was swift, and it only got pierced in one eye, as it avoided the other eye's silver threads. While Childine was howling in pain, Kitty Lee speedily leapt down from its body, as she returned to Yiqing Luo's side. Roar, 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 a fierce roar that was filled with raging anger rang out. That eye which was filled with blood was scarlet red. The other eye was also emitting scarlet fury. These people had completely infuriated it. The ground shook as the mountains shook. Following Child Yin's howl, those magical beasts which were battling with the other youngsters all started to howl as well. In a split second, the entire forest was filled with waves of magical beasts' howls. One after another, it was especially ear-piercing. Yiqing Luo's body, which was suspended in mid-air, suddenly swayed, as she almost fell down. She couldn't help but creased her brows tightly, as her slender hand covered her chest. A fishy sweetness surged up her throat, as though it was about to gush out from her mouth. Lass! Circulate your profound jade heart's profound chi, protect your heart meridians. By her ear, old man Tsang's anxious voice rang hazily. Yiqing Luo took a deep breath, as her eardrums felt a piercing pain. Not only her. Quite a few of the youths around him had already vomited blood from the howls of the magical beasts. These magical beasts were all mid to high-level magical beasts. Coupled with a high-level mirage beast, if they howled in unison, it would be easy for a low-level profound practitioner's internal organs to rupture and die from this howl. Brothers, protect your heart. Yiqing Luo heaved a sigh of relief and reprimanded in her delicate voice. But after this howl, Yiqing Luo was like a puppet with a broken string, falling straight down from the sky. Fortunately, Kitty Lee was by his side. As a beast man, she was not affected by the howls of the beasts. She speedily supported Yiqing Luo, and her hand, which had already returned to normal, gently placed on the back of Yiqing Luo's hand, which was pressing on her chest. Cat! Yiqing Luo was surprised. A warm feeling slowly flowed into Yiqing Luo's heart. That source wrapped around her heart and harmonized with her profound jade heart. The sharp pain in his eardrums and the sweet taste in his throat finally subsided. Just as Yiqing Luo heaved a sigh of relief, a scorching feeling suddenly arose in her heart, as though a raging fire was burning. Kitty Lee, who was transferring her profound chi, suddenly retracted her hand, as though she was scalded, as she looked at her own palm in disbelief. It was still fair, but that scorching pain still remained in her palm. What was going on? Kitty Lee stared at Yiqing Luo in astonishment, seeing her slender brows knitted into a bundle, as her delicate body kept twisting, as though she was in extreme pain. Chapter 603. Sister. Kitty Lee panicked as she called out to Yiqing Luo. But Yiqing Luo seemed as though she couldn't hear what she said as she shut her eyes tightly, writhing in pain in her arms. Yiqing Luo could no longer hear any sounds from the outside world. She was in so much pain, her entire body was in pain. So painful that it felt like something was expanding from the bottom of her heart, as though it was about to explode, squeezing her. Hundreds of beasts howled one after another, exploding unceasingly in her head. Boom, that howl turned into a ray of white light in her mind. Yiqing Luo lost all her consciousness as she fainted. Sister. Qing Luo. Kitty Lee, Qiao Jin and the others shouted in unison. Long Yunzhan's figure swayed as he appeared next to Kitty Lee, his azure blue eyes staring intently at Yiqing Luo. Just as he stretched out his hand to carry Yiqing Luo from Kitty Lee's arms. His back suddenly felt a chill as the human dragon's perception made Long Yunzhan's feet flashed slightly as he evaded. Following that, he saw Dmo Xian's figure flashed past and Yiqing Luo was already in his arms. This lunatic. Long Yunzhan's eyes sunk. What are you doing? There was a mysterious dark forces man over there. He just left that person behind and rushed over. Wouldn't that be giving the dark forces a chance to counterattack? Dmo Xian ignored Long Yunzhan as his pair of chilly eyes stared at the little woman in his arms. Her face was pale and there was no reaction. No matter how he used his profound qi to probe the condition of her body, it didn't evoke any reaction from her. If it wasn't for the fact that Yiqing Luo's breathing was still smooth. If it wasn't for the fact that Yiqing Luo's brows were still tightly knitted. Dmo Xian almost thought that the person in his arms had already. His slender long fingers were on Yiqing Luo's shoulder as he slowly tightened his grip on her clothes. That peerless face was expressionless as though it was covered with frost, making one feel as though they were in an ice house. Lil Luo, His hoarse voice was filled with worry. Dmo Xian hugged Yiqing Luo tightly as his gaze was fixed on her face, not allowing any other person to enter. Seeing Dmo Xian in this state, Long Yunzhan couldn't say anything else. He squinted his azure blue eyes and looked not too far away, at that black-cloaked man who had already returned to stand on Child Yin's shoulder. The black-cloaked man was still wearing a cloak, but it wasn't hard to see that he was in an extremely sorry state. The cloak on his body had already been shredded into several pieces by the profound qi. Even when he was standing on Child Yin's shoulder, he seemed to be on the verge of collapsing. That Child Yin was still howling continuously. Each sound was sharper than the one before. Hundreds of beasts cried out in unison, as if they were responding to the strongest among the beasts. Dmo Xian's thoughts were all placed on Yiqing Luo. The enchantment suddenly disappeared. Child Yin's furious howls and hundreds of beasts' howls were clearly transmitted into Ji Tsang Tian and Lan Ling Nuo's eardrums. Lan Ling Nuo was merely in mystic profound first grade, and when this voice entered her ears, she instantly spat out a mouthful of blood as her delicate body fell limply into Ji Tsang Tian's arms. Sister Nuo. Ji Tsang Tian frantically hugged Lan Ling Nuo tightly as his eyes were filled with heartache. As for those group members who sat by the side and listened to his orders, not leaving the barrier, other than obeying his orders, it was also because their profound grades weren't high and their abilities weren't high, so they were afraid of death, which was why they stayed behind. Now that the barrier had dispersed, these people couldn't take it as they directly spat out blood as they fell onto the ground. There were a few group members whose internal organs were ruptured as they died on the spot. Chapter 604. At this moment, Ji Tsang Tian couldn't be bothered about their gender difference as his palm immediately covered Lan Ling Nuo's chest. The woman's soft chest bumped into his palm. Up and down, it made Ji Tsang Tian's delicate-looking face instantly turn red. The woman in his arms was the woman he loved. How could he not be distracted by this? Tsang, brother Tsang Tian. Lan Ling Nuo's brows creased tightly in pain as she kept twisting her body. She was unable to avoid those continuous beast cries, so she could only seek help from Ji Tsangtian. The more she moved, the more Ji Tsangtian's breathing was unable to calm down. He forced himself to hold on to his will and transmitted his profound qi to protect Lan Ling Nuo's heart meridian. The other members who had fallen to the ground were completely disappointed. His team members, his brothers, all had their hearts shattered by the howling of the beasts, and several of them had even died. However, this regiment commander actually did not have the slightest reaction. He didn't even say a word of concern. In his heart, there was only that woman, Lan Ling Nuo. A brother who had risked his life for him was inferior to a woman. How could these team members remain calm in their hearts? Whereas Ji Tsangtian didn't feel that there was any problem with his way of doing things. In his eyes, Blue Dragon Mercenary Group was established by him alone, so it was natural for these group members to listen to him. Moreover, from today onwards, Lan Ling Nuo was their sister-in-law. Naturally, his sister-in-law was the most important. In order to prevent his beastly nature from being triggered by his beloved woman's delicate body, Ji Tsangtian turned his gaze towards the battlefield. Then, he was stunned. Not only him, the other members of the Blue Dragon Group were all stunned when they saw Yi Qing Luo fainting. Their eyes were filled with astonishment and disbelief. The roar of hundreds of beasts would only affect those with lower mystic ranks. Those who were able to reach the 5th level were mostly in the mystic profound realm and above. He wasn't affected much. In the hearts of these group members, these youngsters in the world group were all top-notch prodigies and experts. However, when the 100 beasts cried out, at least half of the 60-odd people were affected. That also meant to say that at least half of the world group's youngsters were mystic profound grade 5 and below. How was this possible? These youths had a tacit understanding of each other and were ruthless. Moreover, they were able to deal with the high-level magical beasts with ease. No matter what, his profound rank should be above the members of the Blue Dragon Group. What shocked them the most was Yi Qing Luo. Ever since the incident of snatching that bear beast's corpse, Blue Dragon Group's members had already treated Yi Qing Luo as a goddess-like figure. She was strong. He was strong enough to command this powerful mercenary group. Otherwise, how would Yi Qing Luo dare to deal with a high-level mirage beast from the 7th level? That was a high-level magical beast, a magical beast. And it was from the 7th level. But, unexpectedly, Yi Qing Luo's profound grade was only at the mystic profound 4th grade. This rank, in the Blue Dragon Mercenary Group, wasn't the lowest mystic rank, but he definitely couldn't be considered as an expert and could only be placed in the reserve team as a substitute member. But they had no choice but to admit that even if it was Ji Tsangtian, the group leader, personally going up against Yi Qing Luo in a one-on-one battle. I'm afraid Ji Tsangtian wasn't able to gain any advantage. In the group members' hearts, the feeling towards Yi Qing Luo was not something that could be described with the word admiration. The current Yi Qing Luo hadn't really fainted. It was pitch black in front of her and a ray of white light flickered, piercing Yi Qing Luo's eyes. She wanted to rub her temples, rubbing her glabella to ease the intense pain. But her body wasn't able to move. Her forelimbs seemed as though they were shackled as they were extremely stiff. Chapter 605. Her heart was burning like a raging fire. Yi Qing Luo was in unbearable pain. Was she afraid of pain? No. In the past, she had endured the pain of having her flesh cut into her bones and didn't make a sound. But she really couldn't endure this kind of intense pain that squeezed her internal organs and ruptured her eardrums. She wanted to cry out, to vent out this pain. But not only was her body unable to move, even her mouth and throat seemed to be glued. Lass, quickly condense your breath. Stay awake. In her ears, Old Man Tsang's voice seemed to be mixed in with the cries of the beasts. Old Man Tsang kept shouting and shouting, but Yiqing Luo couldn't hear clearly. Old Man Tsang repeated it over and over again. After a long time, Yiqing Luo pieced together a complete sentence from the few fragmented words in his words. Yiqing Luo braced her willpower and followed Old Man Tsang's words, trying hard to condense her breath. Lass, the mother of the profound jade heart is by your side. You only need to control the profound jade heart in your body, the rest. You can only rely on yourself. Old Man Tsang's words made Yiqing Luo very puzzled. The mother of the profound jade heart. Wasn't it Dmo Xian? Dmo Xian was by her side. Then, what about that black-cloaked man? Why did he let her control the profound jade heart in her body? Countless questions kept revolving in her mind, expanding and almost about to explode. Yiqing Luo couldn't think anymore. A surge of heat surged in her heart and instantly swallowed her consciousness. Ah! A mournful scream overflowed from Yiqing Luo's mouth. Qing Luo! Sister! The few people standing behind Dmo Xian surrounded her and cried out worriedly. They had never heard Yiqing Luo cry out like this. In their hearts, Yiqing Luo had always been a strong girl, strong to the point that she wouldn't cry out in pain. Today when they heard her scream, everyone's heart seemed to be strangled by something, breathing was difficult. The lady in Dmo Xian's arms had pale lips that were devoid of blood, as blood kept gushing out, causing that extremely pale complexion to add a tinge of bewitching color. Everyone's hearts were trembling. Pairs of hopeful gazes looked towards Dmo Xian. Overlord. He was like a deity, everyone's hope at this moment. The legend of the Nirvana realm, the legendary man. He definitely had a way to save Yiqing Luo. Dmo Xian lowered his eyelids, his curved eyelashes casting a shadow below his eyes. Then, he slowly raised his head and looked at Kitty Lee. Look at her. His eyes were filled with a thick chill. Kitty Lee trembled as she subconsciously walked over and took over Yiqing Luo who was in Dmo Xian's arms. The arch, Xiao Jin realized what Dmo Xian wanted to do and immediately called out to him. But Dmo Xian seemed as though he couldn't hear his voice as he flew towards Child Yin's direction. Xiao Jin chased a few steps forward, but ultimately still stopped. The overlord had pampered Qing Luo in the palm of his hand. Seeing Qing Luo in such a state, the overlord's heart felt worse than anyone else. He wanted to take revenge for Qing Luo. The howls around them continued. Long Yunzhan congealed his senses as he took a deep look at Yiqing Luo. His azure blue eyes were tainted with a chilly glint. Kill. Leave none alive. Leave not a single one alive. Were they going to massacre the 5th level, all the magical beasts who had taken part in this battle? Blue Dragon Group's members all felt that these youngsters had gone mad. Whereas for those youngsters, they clenched their fists tightly as they raised them up. That sonorous and forceful voice kept repeating the same word. Chapter 606. Dmo Xian's sudden attack caused Child Yin, who was still howling in pain, to not notice it at all. That huge mountain-like body fell backwards. The black-cloaked man on his shoulder swiftly leapt up and left Dmo Xian's attack range. Dmo Xian's charming thin lips curled upwards as his eyes were filled with frost, and the attacks in his hands became even more vicious and sharp, pressing towards the black-cloaked man. Earlier when he was battling with the black-cloaked man, Dmo Xian hadn't displayed his full strength. Whereas the current Dmo Xian had apparently started to become serious. The black-cloaked man's original arrogance started to become timid as he fled in all directions. Under the black-cloaked man's summoning, Child Yin speedily climbed up as it stared with its blood-dripping eyes, pouncing towards Dmo Xian. One beast and one man, tangled with each other. Long Yunzhan and the others knew that in this kind of battle, there was no chance for the mortals to interfere. If they allowed this bunch of magical beasts to continue howling, it would affect Yiqing Luo's injuries to a certain extent. He led the world group's youngsters and started killing those howling magical beasts. Yiqing Luo, who was in the abyss of suffering, struggled in pain, trying to break free from this pain. Lil Luo, I respect whatever you think. I will wait for you to walk side by side with me. Suddenly, an extremely pleasant voice sounded in his ears. That voice was mellow like fine wine, deep and clear. Sentence after sentence, it kept calling out her name. Those sentences were sweet and warm, warming one's heart. In a daze, a peerless face appeared in front of her. He looked at her lovingly and gave her an extremely gentle smile. Madam Qing Luo, the one who admires you the most now is Sister Ziqing. Madam Qing Luo, you're the center of devil class. Qing Luo. Immediately following that, familiar faces flashed past her eyes as she heard their voices calling out to her. These people's faces, these people's voices, slowly turned into a warm current, flowing in her heart. Wherever the warm current flowed through, the sharp pain from the tremors gradually disappeared. Even the profound jade heart which was burning in her heart seemed to have been extinguished. That warm current filled her limbs and bones, circulating 1 cycle, 2 cycles. Yiqing Luo became aware of something and immediately controlled her profound jade heart to continuously absorb that warm current, breathing it in and out, lingering around her profound jade heart. That warm current, under Yiqing Luo's control, gradually wrapped around the profound heart jade, forming a round bowl. Following that, Yiqing Luo felt her body suddenly becoming light, like a feather. All the pain had dissipated. His breathing was smooth, and his body was filled with energy. Wave after wave of profound energy flowed continuously within her body. Kitty Li, who was hugging Yiqing Luo, kept transmitting her profound qi in an attempt to awaken Yiqing Luo and protect her heart meridians. However, the profound energy that was transmitted seemed to have fallen into a bottomless abyss, and it didn't receive any response at all. Suddenly, Yiqing Luo's body exploded with an intense light. Immediately following that ray of light directly lifted Yiqing Luo's body into mid-air. Sister! Kitty Li panicked, her hands didn't even manage to hug Yiqing Luo tightly. She could only look on helplessly as Yiqing Luo's body rushed into mid-air. Everyone's gazes were attracted by this dazzling light. Everyone's vision, all congregated over. The lady who was in deep sleep, was surrounded by a violent force, as it kept dancing the lady's long hair which had fallen onto her shoulders. Her fine black hair danced, as though it was floating in a dream. Chapter 607. The crowd looked at the lady in mid-air in astonishment. All the profound qi and that dazzling light surged towards the direction of Yiqing Luo's wrist. Faintly, cherry blossom-like totems could be seen on that slender wrist, which looked extremely flirtatious. What was going on? The youngsters looked at this scene in disbelief. By right, so much profound qi was encircling Yiqing Luo's surroundings. This should be the trend of her advancing. But these profound qi were not like ordinary cultivators who advanced, which was surging towards the cultivator's profound jade heart, but towards the wrist. While the crowd was puzzled, the black-cloaked man who was dealing with Dmo Xian was in a sorry state with injuries all over his body. The cloak on him had long been damaged, leaving only a veil which covered his entire face. That black-cloaked man had also noticed the situation over here. On seeing the cherry blossom totem on Yiqing Luo's wrist, he turned stiff. That was impossible. How could it be in Yiqing Luo's hands? The black-cloaked man stared at that cherry blossom totem in disbelief, as a biting cold glint flashed past his eyes. Gee! After a slight sound came to his ears, the black-cloaked man felt a sharp pain in his chest. The black-cloaked man lowered his eyes and saw a burst of profound chi penetrating through his body from his chest. The black-cloaked man raised his eyes in astonishment and met with a pair of icy-cold peach blossom eyes. She is the person whom this lord wants to protect. Even this lord can't bear to hurt her, just based on you dare to lay your eyes on her. The extremely ridiculing words were like frost, directly entering the black-cloaked man's ears. This lord. He was Overlord. The black-cloaked man drew in a breath of cold air. The cloak on his head swayed as it fell onto the ground, revealing a skinny like firewood, completely supported by bones and skin. It looked extremely horrifying. Especially now, the black-cloaked man's eyes were wide open, staring at Dmo Xian in disbelief. It was like a pair of eyeballs, staring straight at Dmo Xian. Only a dead person will keep all secrets. Following Dmo Xian's cold voice, the black-cloaked man's body fell straight down, without any signs of life. Dmo Xian retracted his hand and turned his gaze towards Yiqing Luo, who was floating in mid-air as his brows creased slightly. He was afraid that something big was going to happen. His little Luoer, he had to grow up quickly. The profound qi which encircled Yiqing Luo's body in that dazzling light sped up the encirclement frequency, constantly mixing and colliding. Not long after, all of the profound qi had been absorbed into his wrist. Just as that ray of light disappeared, Yiqing Luo, who was suspended in mid-air, suddenly opened her eyes. Those dazzling, star-like eyes shot out a powerful, sharp blade. A powerful airflow revolved around her body. Even the air seemed to be rippling. Mystic Profound 4th grade, with a single leap, he directly advanced to Mystic Profound 8th grade. Here it comes again. The youngsters in the world group had already turned numb from being dumbstruck. Motherf ****. It was another level skipping promotion. Their Madame Qing Luo was just too valiant. Was it really that easy to advance now, so casual? Whereas those members of the Blue Dragon group were completely dumbstruck. Were they dreaming? They had never heard of anyone being able to advance by 4 grades in a row. The only time they had heard of skipping promotion was 100 years ago, that genius from Three Springs sect, who was from Yellow Profound 5th grade to 7th grade. No one was like Yiqing Luo. Chapter 608. Childine. Yiqing Luo gave a delicate cry as she stepped into the air, and the strong airflow beneath her feet kept on spreading. Her charming eyes were filled with chilly intent as she stared straight at Childine as she roared furiously, "Come, fight!" Saying that, she shot up into the sky like an arrow leaving the bow. Roar, roar! Childine's eyes revealed a murderous glint as it stared at this audacious human who dared to pierce its eye. The other eye, which was still intact, was filled with a scarlet murderous intent. Yiqing Luo gave a cold laugh as she clenched her feather fan tightly and launched her attack. The profound qi which revolved around the feather fan and that intense whirlwind was on a totally different level from before. Especially that agile silver thread which covered the sky and earth as it entangled, there was no place to hide at all. Wave after wave of attacks, Yiqing Luo simply became braver as she fought. Childine kept on howling as it avoided Yiqing Luo's attacks. But the current Yiqing Luo's speed was much faster than before. Childine couldn't react at all, and in just a short moment, its body was already filled with big and small wounds. Some of its skin and flesh even started to ooze blood. It was so painful that Childine howled even more miserably. Under Long Yunzhan's lead, the surrounding magical beasts had been slaughtered, and there were still 20 over of them. These magical beasts were facing such a swift and fierce team, so how could they follow Childine to howl out? Even if they could howl, there were only 20 over of them left, so they were unable to create the kind of shock earlier. The current Yiqing Luo's body was as light as a feather. She felt that her breathing was getting smoother and smoother as her body became lighter and her speed became faster and faster. Even if she didn't display that set of footwork, her current speed was something which ordinary people absolutely could not chase up to. Her body had undergone a huge change. After the advancement, not only her profound grade had been upgraded, her overall strength and body quality had also been upgraded. She totally didn't feel any discomfort in her body and mind at all. Even his internal organs, which had been injured by the roars of hundreds of beasts, had been completely healed. Roar, roar, stupid humans. A bunch of despicable humans. Childine howled loudly as that child's features on its face had already twisted into a sinister bundle. Its thick arms kept waving and slapping around. Yiqing Luo dodged it nimbly, and with a light tap of her toes, she circled around its body and the silver threads shot out from her feather fan trapped it within. Suddenly, Child Yin's dancing hand stretched out as a furious roar rang out, and following that, a huge light ball was spat out from its mouth. That light ball was the size of Child Yin's head, which was equivalent to a huge rock which could fit 3 grown men. It headed directly towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Qing Luo, be careful. The onlookers were so scared that their hearts skipped a beat. One by one, they reminded him, their hearts in their throats. Yiqing Luo was stunned, Yiqing Luo was stunned, Yiqing Luo's heart was filled with curses. Damn it! What kind of technique was this? It could even spit out light balls from its mouth. Was it a magical beast or a little monster? Yiqing Luo's figure swiftly swayed, and at the same time as she avoided the light ball, she kept on shouting, "Bring the men and evacuate quickly." The attack range of Child Yin's light ball is very far. She was able to avoid Child Yin's attack. But that didn't mean that the group of brothers behind her were able to avoid it. Under Child Yin's rage, the light ball which was released from its mouth was enough to sweep this entire forest. Long Yunzhan and the others reacted swiftly as they immediately brought everyone to evacuate. Chapter 609. Hence, if a group of people were to arrive at the 5th level to complete a mission, they would probably see this strange scene. In front of them, a large group of mercenaries, who were in a sorry state, ran forward. Behind them were 20 over-injured advanced-leveled magical beasts as they bared their fangs, howling as they chased after them. But only after running for 100 meters away, Long Yunzhan stopped in his tracks as he raised his hand to shout for them to stop. Following that, all of them turned around and started waving their weapons towards those 20 over magical beasts, killing them. This position was out of the shooting range of the light ball, but they were still able to see Yiqing Luo clearly. That stretch of forest had already turned into ruins. The huge light ball exploded on the ground as sand and pebbles flew everywhere as dust curled upwards. The entire magical beast forest shook once again as it shook incessantly. Roar, roar! Seeing its own light ball being avoided by Yiqing Luo, Childine howled even louder as it pounded its own chest fiercely as it spat out one light ball after another. That's right. One by one. One after another, the huge light ball was like bullets as it bombarded downwards with a pitter-patter. Yiqing Luo avoided the first one, and the second light ball followed closely behind. When each light ball crashed onto the ground, it exploded a deep pit as it set off a huge airwave. This airwave also affected Yiqing Luo's performance. Just as Yiqing Luo avoided the third light ball, the airwave behind her directly caused Yiqing Luo's petite body to fall onto the ground. Immediately following that, the fourth light ball struck towards her. Qing Luo. Long Yunzhan and the others stopped their hands which were slashing the magical beasts as they shouted out towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Dead! That little slut is dead. Lan Ling Nuo, who was carried in Ji Tsangtian's arms, was filled with joy as she watched Yiqing Luo being swallowed by the light ball as she excitedly hugged Ji Tsangtian's neck tightly. That spirited beautiful eyes were filled with joy as it was extremely beautiful. From the might of that light ball, it was totally able to flatten that stretch of forest. If Yi Qing Luo was struck by that light ball, she probably wouldn't even have a full corpse left. The more she thought, the more excited Lan Ling Nuo's expression became. She smiled and even smiled as she hugged his neck. Ji Tsang Tian's heart was thumping non-stop right now, so why would he care about what Lan Ling Nuo said? She nodded in agreement with Lan Ling Nuo's words. Yes, yes, yes. It's good that he died. It's good that he died. As long as younger sister Nuo is happy. But they didn't know that the surrounding youths were glaring at them as if they were enemies who had killed their fathers. Wretched servant girl, say that one more time. Tong Ziqing took quick steps forward and directly pulled Lan Ling Nuo out from Ji Tsang Tian's arms. She raised her hand and slapped Lan Ling Nuo's face. Before Ji Tsang Tian could even react in time, he heard a crisp slap sound. Under her meticulous care, Lan Ling Nuo's skin was extremely exquisite. Half of his face was flushed red from the slap, leaving a clear imprint of his 5 fingers. You crazy woman! What are you doing? Ji Tsang Tian swiftly rushed up, trying to carry Lan Ling Nuo back. However, the girl in front of him looked small and delicate. But she just used one hand to casually change Lan Ling Nuo's side. Tong Ziqing wasn't appeased as she raised her hand and gave Lan Ling Nuo another slap on her left cheek as she scolded, If Qing Luo dies, I'll make your entire Blue Dragon mercenary group accompany her to the grave. These words made Ji Tsang Tian's already gloomy face turn even colder. After hitting his woman, they even threatened his mercenary group. Did they really think that his Blue Dragon mercenary group was a bunch of vegetarians? These youngsters were just too arrogant. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.